So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the comparison of some of the current certifications that you, if you're not yet certified, may be able to get. Now keep in mind, certifications may or may not really be standard in all 50 states. So you want to make sure that wherever you are, that you know the laws in that state related to certification, and that if you are going to get certified, that you get the appropriate certification. But I'm going to talk about 3 certifications that are generally accepted in some form in the state of California, and because many people related to some of the classes that I teach are in California, I'm going to focus there, but you should keep these in mind, and then if you live in a different state, you should do some research about certification in that state as well. So one of the certifications is called the Educational Signed Skill Evaluation, and in the state of California, through the Department of Education in kindergarten through 12th grade, it's considered an equivalent certification to RID, meaning that they can, if you have one of the RID certifications, any of the certs that RID offered, then if you have an ESSE at a level 4 or higher, then you are qualified according to that piece of paper, that certification, to work in the K-12 environment. You could work in elementary through high school, because in California you're required to have a certification to work in those environments. And by the way, that is a requirement even if you're a freelancer. You don't just have an employee. The way that the law is written, or the mandate is written, is that all people who do the task of interpreting, even when they're not called an interpreter, must have a certification. So ESSE, and if you want to find information about it, it's at www.seecenter.org, ccenter.org. Now, just because they're offered from the C Center doesn't mean that they only believe in C-sign. It just happens to be an approach that they take, and especially in an educational setting, that might be useful to help a deaf person learn how to read and write. That's one of the certifications we're going to talk about in this comparison. Another is the EIPA, which is the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment. And EIPA's website is at www.classroominterpreting.org. Now, by the way, the ESSE is offered by the C Center. EIPA is offered out of Boys Town in Nebraska. That's who the organization is that's behind, who created this assessment tool. And I think in the beginning it was meant to provide feedback to educational interpreters, but over the years it has actually turned into a certification, even that you can become a certified member of RID, which we'll talk about. And then the final certification that we'll look at, and by the way, you can get the ESSE today. You could go take the EIPA test today. And then the last one is the NIC. And the NIC certification is offered through the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf at www.rid.org. And depending on the time period in which you're watching this, you may be thinking that they're still in a level system of having certified, advanced, and master, but that's gone. They're now in you're certified, and I believe that the direction of, actually, I'm not going to talk about the direction of it. I'll do that in a different video. So, if you want to take the ESSE evaluation, you do not have to do a knowledge exam before you take the performance test. So keep that in mind. If you decide you want to take the ESSE, all you have to do is apply and pay the money, and they'll let you take their evaluation. If you want to take the EIPA assessment, you do not have to take a knowledge exam before you take the performance exam. You can go take the performance exam without taking a knowledge exam. If you want to take the NIC evaluation, to be able to sit for the performance exam, you must take and pass a knowledge exam. So NIC has a knowledge exam that is in place. You must take it. You must pass it before they'll let you sit for a performance test. Now, ESSE actually has no knowledge exam related to their certification. EIPA has an optional knowledge exam. So depending on where you live in the country, they may require you to take that knowledge exam and take the performance assessment, or they may not. In California at the moment, they don't. EIPA, if you decide that you want to be a certified member of RID, then what you do is you can take the performance assessment of EIPA first, and if you score a 4.0 or higher, because that's the level of performance assessment you have to take to join RID as a certified member, if you get a 4.0 or higher on the performance, then you can go take EIPA's knowledge exam after you take the performance exam. So that's different than NIC, where you have to take the knowledge exam first and pass it. EIPA, you never have to take it unless your state requires it, but you don't have to take it. But if you want to be a member of RID, you have to take it, but you don't have to do it in a particular order. You can do the performance first, then do the knowledge. And some people do that because if they don't pass the performance test first, they don't want to take the knowledge until they've already gotten their 4. Then when they have their 4.0 on their performance, they'll go and take the knowledge test so that they can join RID as a certified member. All right. Now, these days, to be able to sit for the performance exams, in the NIC, you must have a bachelor's degree, or you have to go through an equivalency process that you can find on RID's website. So, to be able to sit for their current certification, you need to have a bachelor's degree for the performance side. You don't need your bachelor's degree to take the knowledge exam. If you take the knowledge exam and pass it, you have 5 years to then take the performance exam, which means to get yourself qualified to take the performance exam by having your bachelor's degree, and then you can sit for the performance and become a certified interpreter for RID. EIPA does not require at the moment a level of education before you take the test, so you don't have to come in proving you have any kind of a degree, and that's true of ESSE as well. All right, so ESSE, again, has no knowledge exam. EIPA has an optional one. NIC has a required one. NIC requires a degree or an equivalency, you can find on their site. ESSE and EIPA do not require degrees. By the way, your degree for NIC can be in anything. So you can get a welding degree if you can get a bachelor's degree in welding or auto mechanics, or the history of making clothes, whatever. It doesn't matter. Your degree can be in anything, and that satisfies having a degree. Now, the ESSE has options for you to choose from if you want to take their test, their evaluation. So ESSE, you can take an elementary version of a test, you can take a middle school version of a test, or you can take a high school version of a test. That's designed, if you're going to be an educational interpreter, to evaluate you at the level in which you really work, because you're probably most comfortable with that age of kids and that type of material. So that's a bonus in the form of if you work as a pre-certified interpreter in an educational setting, you just take the test at the level that you're most comfortable with. And in California, you can pass, as long as you pass one of the levels, you can work in any of the levels. So just keep that in mind. EIPA has a similar option in that EIPA has an elementary and a secondary level. So you can pick elementary, you can pick secondary, and you can get a certification in either one of those or both if you really want them. In California, either one will work for any of the K-12 levels. NIC has no such options. We'll talk about where I think their future is going. They do have some specialist certification already in play, one being a legal certification, one being an oral certificate, and I believe that their work, well, we'll leave it at those for what's already in place. And but NIC has no options of levels. Now, ESSE lets you sign and do your interpretation in your natural signing style. So you don't have to pick and choose, are you going to do ASL or PSE or C-sign? You can sign however you sign naturally. And one of the nice things about ESSE is they'll actually tell you what mode that they observe that you interpret in. EIPA asks for you to request, are you going to use C-sign, PSE with English features, PSE with ASL features, or essentially ASL. And so, and that also helps them determine the receptive side of the test. So it's a good idea if you actually know what your signing style is. If you have no idea, then take the ESSE and they'll tell you. So one of the nice things about taking certification tests with feedback, which I'll talk about in a second, is the feedback can help you determine how to improve and how to get better. So, okay. So ESSE has two portions of their test. They have an expressive portion where you listen to a classroom happening, a classroom event, and you interpret into sign language. And then they have a receptive side of the test. And you watch somebody signing something and you'll translate that into English. That's not voicing, it's really a translation activity from watching somebody sign to written English. EIPA does have a voicing component. So EIPA has an expressive component where you listen to a classroom setting and you sign. You also have a voicing component where you watch a child at the level which you determined, elementary or secondary, in the sign language mode that you determined. You watch a child sign and you voice that signing. So ESSE has a voicing component. EIPA has a voicing component. ESSE does not have a voicing component. It is a receptive skill component. NIC, based on the way that they issue the test, you will do all the tasks of signing into sign language and watching sign language and turning it back into spoken English. And then related to feedback that you get if you take an assessment, ESSE gives you great detailed feedback. In fact, it's a packet that's several pages thick that has the evaluator's comments. So the evaluator, they don't actually even summarize the comments. They give you each evaluator's comments in whole, so you'll see some evaluators have an opinion one way and some have an opinion another way, which is good because that's the subjective nature of a deaf person watching you interpret. Now, EIPA also has detailed feedback. In fact, it's a packet. And EIPA actually goes even a step farther in that they will tell you each score on each criteria, each individual item that they rate you on. They will give you a score, and then they will give you summarized written feedback about what you do and possible ideas on how you should practice to get better. So those are some things that are similar with ESSE and EIPA in the form of that feedback. NIC does not give you detailed feedback. It's very minimal at best, and so the feedback that you're going to get from them is more like maybe some categories and and an overall pass-fail rate, but they don't really give you feedback that's going to help you really get better or know what you need to do to enhance. So one of the things that I always will recommend to people is, even if you took the NIC test and you didn't pass it, and you're trying to figure out what you need to do to get better, go take either the ESSE or the EIPA, not for the fact of worrying about it being a certification, but just to get the feedback, because you'll get feedback from multiple raters, and I personally think that's a good thing. There are people individuals, like I have done it, people who you can go to ask for feedback, and then many of them will charge a fee. But I always suggest, well, why not just go take one of the certification tests? You'll get that committee or that panel's feedback, and it's going to ultimately cost about the same amount of money for somebody to do an individual feedback base, or a team of people who issue you a certificate that's actually could be useful in your state. So that's just an opinion of mine related to taking tests, is it can help you gauge what you need to do to enhance. So if you're a student, I always recommend take the ESSE test first and get their feedback, and then work on their suggestions and their feedback and the things that you scored, what you score high and low in, and work on that for a year before you then go take the EIPA, because then it's a whole different test, it's a whole different group of people, and you'll get feedback from them. And then this is genuine feedback, because these people don't know who you are, so they can only go off of what they see, and there's no emotional ties on do they like you or do they not, or any of that stuff that could happen. So I find taking those tests is a good tool to help you become a better interpreter. So that's just some of the things that are in a comparison basis of the 3 certifications that are kind of, or 3 evaluation systems that are kind of the most predominant in the United States. The NIC is generally accepted in all of the states. The EIPA is getting accepted in more and more states, partly because of its connection to the NIC or RID's membership. I believe on EIPA's website you'll actually be able to find what states require what levels, because not all states require a 4, by the way. Some states, to work in their K-12s, you can get a 3 or a 3.5. California requires the 4, and then if you take it past the written test, you can get the benefit of joining RID as a certified member. ESSE, outside of California, I'm unaware of what other states take it, but I do know they give workshops in many other states, so I have some impression that their certification may be helpful to many people in other states, at least in the educational system. So with that being said, anything else that you want to know about certification, I'm sure you can research it out, but this is some comparison of the 3 certifications that are sort of national that you can take today, meaning if you have the qualifications, since NIC needs them, if you feel that you're skilled enough, you can take the ESSE test and hopefully pass it and be considered certified in California in a K-12 setting. You can take the EIPA test, get a 4.0, and can be considered certified. And NIC, you can take the NIC test, and if you pass it, you're considered certified. Those 3 are available to you as we speak. So pick your plan, start developing your plan of action for becoming a certified interpreter, and go for it, because